The neon lights of New Haven cast harsh shadows across Drake Thorne's scarred face as he moved through the abandoned industrial sector. 20 years of military service had left their mark, not just in the physical scars that decorated his weathered features, but in the cold calculation behind his steel-gray eyes. The former commander of the Stellar Defense Force's most elite unit now worked alone, taking contracts that others deemed too dangerous or morally ambiguous. Rain fell in sheets, turning the polluted streets into rivers of reflected light. Drake's enhanced hearing picked up movement ahead, probably scavengers looking for salvage in the ruins. He'd learned long ago to mind his own business in these parts. The war between humans and the Nexus Coalition had left countless cities like this one, broken shells of their former glory. A sharp cry cut through the rain, different from the usual sounds of urban decay. Drake's hand instinctively moved to his pulse rifle, muscle memory from countless combat drops taking over. The sound came again, weaker this time, from a pile of twisted metal and broken concrete ahead. He should have walked away. That's what survival in this new world demanded. But something in that cry reached past his carefully constructed walls of indifference. Drake moved forward, his boots splashing through puddles as he approached the source. The pile of debris shifted slightly, and Drake caught a glimpse of something that made him freeze. A small hand, but not human, the skin was a pale lavender, with slight iridescent scaling typical of the Nexus species. A hybrid child. Damn it, Drake muttered, already knowing he couldn't walk away. He began carefully moving debris aside, revealing more of the trapped figure beneath. The child couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 by human standards, though hybrid aging was notoriously difficult to gauge. One leg was clearly broken, and numerous cuts and bruises covered the small form. When Drake finally cleared enough debris to see the child's face, he sucked in a sharp breath. Like most hybrids, the features were a haunting blend of human and alien characteristics. But what struck him were the eyes, a deep violet that seemed to hold both fear and defiance as they met his gaze. "Don't move," Drake said, keeping his voice steady. "You're hurt. I'm going to help you." The child tried to scramble away despite the injuries, letting out a pained gasp. "No, humans always lie." Drake slowly removed his combat jacket, revealing that while he was armed, he wasn't wearing military insignia. "My name is Drake. I'm not with the military anymore." "What's your name?" There was a long pause filled only with the sound of rain. Finally, in barely a whisper, "Raven." "Okay, Raven. You've got a broken leg and probably some internal injuries. There's a medical facility 3 sectors over that doesn't ask questions. Will you let me help you?" Raven's eyes darted between Drake's face and the surrounding shadows, clearly weighing options. "Why would you help me? I'm not like you." Drake's mind flashed to another rain-soaked night, years ago, when he'd followed orders instead of his conscience. The memory of other hybrid children, ones he hadn't saved, haunted him still. Maybe that's exactly why I should help. He moved slowly, telegraphing his movements as he gathered the injured child in his arms. Raven was desperately light, probably hadn't eaten properly in weeks. The small body trembled against him, whether from cold, pain, or fear, he couldn't tell. "I'm going to get you somewhere safe," Drake said, securing his jacket around the shivering form. "Then we'll figure out the rest." As he carried Raven through the neon-lit streets, Drake knew his life had just irreversibly changed. The lone wolf operator who'd spent years avoiding attachments had just picked up the most dangerous kind of responsibility, a hybrid child who would be hunted by both sides of a never-ending conflict. But looking down at the fierce violet eyes that were already beginning to trust him despite everything, Drake felt something he hadn't experienced in years: purpose. Whatever came next, he would protect this child. It wasn't redemption for his past, nothing could erase those choices, but maybe it was a step towards something better. The rain continued to fall as they made their way through the darkness, 2 broken souls finding an unexpected connection in a world that had forgotten the meaning of mercy. The underground medical facility hummed with ancient machinery as Dr. Jean worked on Raven's injuries. Drake stood watch near the door, his enhanced senses alert for any sign of trouble. The doctor, a woman who'd lost her license for treating hybrid patients during the war, worked quickly and efficiently. "The leg will heal," she said, adjusting the regenerative field generator. "But there's something else you should know." She gestured Drake closer, lowering her voice. "This child has extensive genetic modifications. Military grade. Someone engineered this hybrid for something specific." Drake's jaw tightened. He'd suspected as much from the unusual markings along Raven's spine. "Can you tell what kind?" "Enhanced strength, accelerated healing, probably improved cognitive functions. But there's damage too, whoever did this wasn't gentle about it." Dr. Jin's dark eyes met Drake's. "They'll be looking for this one." "Let them try," Drake replied, his hand resting on his weapon. A soft whimper from the medical bed drew their attention. Raven was waking up, violet eyes darting around the unfamiliar surroundings in panic until they found Drake. The fear subsided slightly, replaced by cautious recognition. "How do you feel?" Drake asked, approaching slowly. "Better," Raven answered, testing the newly healed leg. You really helped me. I told you I would." Drake produced a protein bar from his pack. "Think you can eat something?" Raven practically snatched the food, devouring it with the desperate efficiency of someone who'd known true hunger. Drake silently offered another, which disappeared just as quickly. "We need to move," Dr. Jean interrupted. "My sensors picked up increased activity in the sector. Someone's searching patterns." Drake nodded, helping Raven up. "I've got a safe house in the old mining district. We can." The facility's lights suddenly died, plunging them into darkness broken only by emergency red lighting. Drake's combat instincts screamed danger seconds before the first explosion rocked the building. "Back exit," Dr. Jean commanded, already moving. "There's a maintenance tunnel." The wall behind her erupted inward, and armored figures poured through the breach. Their black combat suits bore no insignia, but Drake recognized military precision when he saw it. He shoved Raven behind a medical cabinet as plasma rounds filled the air. "Run!" Drake bellowed, returning fire with his pulse rifle. He dropped 2 attackers before they could properly establish their positions, but more were coming. Dr. Jean had produced a weapon of her own, providing covering fire from behind an overturned diagnostic table. Raven hadn't moved, frozen in terror. Drake fought his way back to the child's position, eliminating another attacker with a precise headshot. "Raven, look at me. We're getting out of here, but you have to move. Do you understand?" Those violet eyes locked onto his face, and Drake saw something shift in them, fear giving way to determination. Raven nodded once. "Stay close to me," Drake ordered, then turned to Dr. Jean. "Cover the right flank." They moved as a unit, Drake in front, Raven practically glued to his back, and Dr. Jean bringing up the rear. The attackers were good, but they hadn't expected this level of resistance. Drake's enhanced combat reflexes and decades of experience showed as he systematically cleared their path to the maintenance tunnel. They were almost there when a new figure appeared, larger than the others, wearing an advanced combat suit that Drake recognized with a chill. "Nexus Coalition Special Forces. The hybrid belongs to us," the figure announced in a digitally distorted voice. "Stand down, and you may live." Drake's response was a burst of plasma fire, but the coalition operative moved with inhuman speed, closing the distance between them. The following hand-to-hand exchange was brutal and swift, both warriors operating at levels far beyond normal human capability. A sharp crack echoed as Drake's ribs gave way under a devastating blow, but he used the momentum to roll, bringing his backup pistol to bear. The shot caught the operative in a weak point of their armor, drawing a howl of rage. "Go!" Drake shouted to Dr. Jean and Raven, laying down suppressing fire as they reached the tunnel entrance. He began backing up, every step a lesson in agony from his broken ribs. The last thing he saw before diving into the tunnel was the Coalition operative rising, dark fluid leaking from their damaged armor. "This isn't over," the distorted voice promised. They ran through maintenance tunnels for what felt like hours, the sounds of pursuit gradually fading. Finally, in a junction far beneath the city's surface, they stopped to catch their breath. "They'll keep coming," Dr. Jean said quietly, checking her depleted weapon. Drake looked at Raven, who hadn't spoken since the attack began. The child's face was a mask of guilt and fear. "I'm sorry," Raven whispered. "This is my fault. You should leave me." "No." Drake's tone left no room for argument. "We're in this together now. Whatever they want you for, whatever you are, it doesn't matter. I made a choice back there in the rain, and I'm sticking to it." Raven stared at him for a long moment, then moved forward and wrapped small arms around his waist, mindful of his injuries. Drake froze, unused to such contact, then slowly returned the embrace. "We need to keep moving," Dr. Jean interrupted gently. "I know someone in the outer districts who can help with those ribs." Drake nodded, but his focus remained on the child clinging to him. Something was changing in him, breaking down walls he'd built over years of solitude. It should have terrified him, this sudden responsibility, this connection. Instead, he felt more alive than he had in years. They had a long way to go, and powerful enemies on their trail. But looking down at Raven's determined face, Drake knew he'd made the right choice. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The outer districts were a maze of abandoned factories and forgotten dreams. Drake watched as Raven slept fitfully on a makeshift bed in their current hideout, an old maintenance office high above the industrial wasteland. Dr. Jean had treated his ribs before departing to activate her underground network, seeking information about their pursuers. A datapad recovered from one of the fallen attackers flickered to life in Drake's hands. The encryption was military-grade, but his neural implants were designed to crack such barriers. As the data streamed into his consciousness, his expression darkened. Project Starchild. The name hit him like a physical blow. He'd heard whispers about it during his final days with the Stellar Defense Force, a classified program aimed at creating the perfect hybrid soldiers. Children engineered to combine human adaptability with Nexus physical superiority. The sound of whimpering drew his attention back to Raven. The child thrashed in the grip of a nightmare, violet eyes moving rapidly behind closed lids. Drake moved to wake them, but froze as Raven began speaking in a language he'd never heard before, something ancient and musical. "Raven," he called softly. "Wake up. You're safe." The violet eyes snapped open, filled with a strange light that faded quickly. "Drake?" Raven's voice trembled. "I saw. I remembered. Tell me." Raven sat up, small hands clenching into fists. "There were others like me. In a facility. They made us fight each other. Said it would make us stronger." A shudder ran through the small frame. "I didn't want to hurt anyone, but they said they'd kill us if we didn't fight. So I learned to be what they wanted." Drake's cybernetic hand tightened until warning indicators flashed in his vision. "Do you remember where this facility was?" "Underground. Deep underground." "But..." Raven's face scrunched in concentration. "There was an accident. Alarms. People screaming. I ran. Just ran and ran until I couldn't anymore. That's when you found me." The pieces were falling into place. The Coalition operatives' advanced combat suit, the military-grade pursuit team, the extensive genetic modifications. Raven wasn't just another hybrid child, they were potentially the last surviving subject of Project Starchild. "There's something else," Raven said quietly. In my dreams, I see places I've never been. A city made of crystal spires. People with wings of light. But it feels real. Like memories that aren't mine. Drake accessed the decrypted files again, scanning until he found what he feared. Project Starchild hadn't just modified their subjects, they'd somehow incorporated genetic memory from ancient Nexus bloodlines. The children were meant to be living weapons, combining combat programming with instinctive knowledge of long-lost Nexus military arts. A sudden explosion lit up the night sky outside their hideout. Drake was moving before the sound reached them, gathering their minimal supplies. "We need to go. Now." "They're coming again, aren't they?" Raven asked, already heading for the escape route they'd prepared. "Yes, but this time we're not just running." Drake checked his weapons. "I know what they want now, and I think I know where to find answers. There's a research facility in the northern wastes. If Project Starchild started somewhere, it was there." They made their way down the building's maintenance shaft as combat drones filled the air above. Drake's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of boots on metal, strike teams deploying on multiple levels. "Drake?" Raven's voice was steady despite their situation. What if I'm dangerous? What if what they put inside me makes me hurt people?" Drake stopped, turning to face the child. "Listen to me. What they did to you, what they made you do, that's on them. But who you choose to be now, that's yours. And I've seen your heart, kid. You're not a weapon. You're a survivor." Tears welled up in those alien eyes, but Raven nodded firmly. Above them, the sounds of searching grew closer. "Stay behind me," Drake ordered, leading them toward the underground transit tunnels. "We've got a long journey ahead, but we're going to find answers. And then we're going to make sure no one ever does this to another child again." As they disappeared into the darkness below the city, Drake realized something had fundamentally changed. He'd started this trying to save one child, to maybe balance the scales for his past sins. But now he was fighting for something bigger, a future where children like Raven could live without fear, where the wounds between humans and Nexus might finally begin to heal. The night swallowed them as they began their journey north, leaving behind a city alive with the sounds of pursuit. But for the first time in years, Drake felt truly alive. He had a purpose again, and more importantly, someone worth fighting for. The northern wastes stretched endlessly before them, a frozen expanse of twisted metal and ice. Drake's cybernetic eye scanned the horizon, picking up the faint energy signatures of the research facility hidden beneath the tundra. Beside him, Raven moved with newfound confidence, the genetic memories awakening combat instincts that seemed both beautiful and terrifying. "There are others below," Raven whispered, violet eyes glowing faintly. "I can feel them. In pain. Afraid." Drake checked his tactical display. The facility's security systems were still active, but decades of neglect had created vulnerabilities. "How many?" 7. "No, 8. Like me, but different. Younger." Raven's small hands clenched. "We have to help them." A massive explosion lit up the winter sky behind them. The coalition forces had finally caught up. Drake counted at least 3 dropships, their sleek forms cutting through the storm. "Incoming." Drake grabbed Raven as plasma fire strafed their position. They rolled behind a twisted hull of an ancient war machine, ice crystals shattering around them. The coalition operative from the city emerged from the storm, their combat suit now fully repaired. "Impressive survival instincts," the digitally distorted voice called out. "But this ends now. Project Starchild must be contained." "You're right," Drake replied, activating his neural combat systems. "This ends now." He burst from cover, his enhanced reflexes pushing his aging body to its limits. The operative met his charge with inhuman speed, but this time Drake was ready. They clashed in a blur of augmented strength and tactical programming, neither fully human anymore. Raven watched in horror as Drake took a devastating hit, his cybernetic arm sparking. But instead of falling, he locked his damaged limb around the operative's neck. "Now, kid. Like we practiced." Raven's eyes blazed with ancient power as genetic memory took over. The small form moved with impossible grace, striking pressure points that shouldn't exist on a combat suit. The operative's armor seized up, systems crashing. "Impossible," the distorted voice growled. "The genetic memories weren't supposed to activate for years." "You don't understand what you created," Raven replied in that strange, musical language. "We're not your weapons. We're their children." The helmet cracked, revealing a face that was neither human nor Nexus, but something in between. "We gave you power." "No," Drake said, his weapon pressed against the operative's head. "You took children and tried to make them into monsters. But you failed. Because even after everything, they can still choose who they want to be." More dropships appeared above, but these were different, sleeker, organic-looking. Nexus ships. A voice thundered across the wasteland in that same ancient language Raven had spoken. "We've found you, little one," it said. "We felt your awakening." Figures descended from the ships, their forms wrapped in what looked like living light. Pure Nexus, untouched by human modification. They moved with the same fluid grace as Raven, but tempered by centuries of wisdom rather than military programming. The coalition forces opened fire, but their weapons seemed to pass through the Nexus warriors like they were mist. The battle that followed was brief and decisive. "The children below," Raven said to the Nexus leader. "They're like me. They need help." The leader knelt before Raven, wings of energy folding. "Yes. We will help them all. But first, young one, you must choose. You can come with us, learn the true ways of our people, not the twisted version forced into your genes." Raven looked back at Drake, who stood bleeding but unbowed. "What about my father?" The word hit Drake like a physical blow. Father. How long had it been since he'd dared to think of himself as anything but a soldier? The Nexus leader studied him. "The human may come too, if he wishes. We have much to learn from each other, it seems." Drake moved to Raven's side, his remaining hand finding the child's shoulder. "Whatever you choose, kid. I'm with you." Raven smiled up at him, then turned to the Nexus leader. "We'll come. But we have work to do first. There are more facilities, more children who need saving." "Then we shall help," the leader agreed. "Perhaps it is time for humans and Nexus to fight together, rather than against each other." The storm began to clear as they descended into the facility, a joint force of humans and Nexus united in purpose. Drake watched as Raven walked between both worlds, no longer lost, no longer alone. Whatever came next, they would face it as family. 1 year later, the crystal spires of the Nexus sanctuary gleamed in the twin sunsets of their homeworld. Drake watched from a meditation platform as Raven trained with other hybrid children they'd rescued, their movements a perfect blend of human adaptability and Nexus grace. The last Project Starchild facility had fallen 3 months ago. The Coalition's secret program was exposed, leading to the first real peace talks between humans and Nexus in decades. The hybrid children, once meant to be weapons, had become bridges between two civilizations. "Still brooding, old warrior?" The Nexus elder, Harmony, materialized beside him. "Your thoughts are as loud as storm winds." "Not brooding," Drake replied, his cybernetic systems now integrated with Nexus biotechnology. "Remembering." Below, Raven executed a perfect series of combat forms, helping a younger hybrid master the movements. The child who had once hidden in garbage now moved with confidence and purpose, healing others while healing themselves. "The council meets tomorrow," Harmony said. "They will discuss expanding the sanctuary program to human worlds. Many think you should lead it. Drake raised an eyebrow. A former military commander leading a peace initiative? Who better to show that change is possible? Harmony's energy wings shimmed. The children trust you. Both worlds respect you. And you have done what neither side could, seen beyond the scars of war to what could be. A commotion below drew their attention. One of the younger hybrids had attempted an advanced move and fallen. Before any of the instructors could react, Raven was there, helping them up with gentle words of encouragement. I had such different plans, Drake said quietly. Stay alone. Take contracts. Never let anyone close again. The universe has a way of healing us despite our best efforts to remain broken, Harmony replied. Your daughter has taught us all that lesson. Daughter. The word still filled him with equal parts joy and terror. Raven had officially taken his name 6 months ago, in a ceremony that blended human and Nexus traditions. The former lone wolf was now a father, a teacher, and somehow, a bridge between worlds. They're coming. Raven's voice carried up to the platform. More ships appeared in the golden sky, transports carrying the next group of rescued children and their families. Humans and Nexus who had chosen to help build something new together. Drake descended to the landing area where Raven waited. Violet eyes met his, still full of that fierce spirit he'd first seen in the rain. Ready? She asked. Ready, he confirmed, placing a hand on her shoulder. Together, they walked forward to welcome the newcomers. Behind them, the sanctuary's spires reached toward the stars, no longer a hiding place, but a beacon of hope. A place where broken things could be mended, where warriors could learn peace, and where a ruthless soldier and a hybrid child could find family in each other. The twin sun set on a new chapter for both civilizations. And in the growing darkness, countless points of light gleamed, not weapons or warships, but the combined energy signatures of humans and Nexus working together, building a future that neither side could have imagined alone. Drake looked down at Raven, who grinned back up at him. Love you, Dad, she said simply. Love you too, kid, he replied, his voice gruff with emotion. Now let's go show these newcomers what family really means. They stepped forward together, two souls who had found each other in darkness, now walking firmly in the light. Behind them, the sanctuary hummed with power and possibility, a testament to the truth they had discovered, that sometimes the greatest acts of warfare were not fought with weapons, but with the simple choice to love, to protect, and to believe in something better.